So I am here comparing as a musician, so I do rapidy rapping stuff, as a dad and as just me, Alex Mighten. So I wanted to explain a little bit about my fatherhood journey, if you don't mind, real quick, just to show you where I am, where I've got to. And then before I start that, I want you guys to think about the 3 things that blew your mind today that you didn't know. If there are any, I'm going to ask you about them later on and you'll see why, okay? So, a little bit about me. So I am today standing here, I have 3 children. I call myself a countdown because I've got 3 kids, 2 mums, 1 divorce. So I've literally been through the whole possible journey that you could happen. And I started my fatherhood journey at the age of 21. So I was quite young, maybe some of the age range of some of the people you may speak to, and there definitely wasn't any of the brilliant support that you guys have around for when I did that. When I think about being a dad, I think a lot of it comes from what you learn from your own dad. Now, there are some households, mine included, where your dad wasn't present. What Anna Mighten said, though, earlier on is that actually the day-to-day presence isn't as formative as you may think, and it's the time that they do spend with you. So my dad, when my mum was pregnant with me, my dad used to be in sound systems, so we used to travel up and down the country playing the music that the radio wouldn't, right? The good tunes. When my mum was pregnant with me, my dad had a car accident, and he was in a van with all his things. The van fell over. It wasn't drunk or anything. It had an accident, and he banged his head on the ground, and therefore that gave him some sort of mental health issues, where he had to stay in residential care. So I didn't actually see my dad till I remember one memory of him when I was 4, and then I started to see him properly when I was 7. So throughout those formative years, I was with my mum a lot, and at the time, my mum was with different partners. So I had there was a village. Let's say there was a village. There's lots of different examples of who a dad could be. Not all of them great. Some abusive. One in particular, not a great guy. So I could have learned a lot from that. What it taught me is what I didn't want to be. That's what it taught me. I was like, well, if I do ever have kids, I really don't want to be that. My upbringing wasn't necessarily the 2.4 children. It was difficult. My mum was on her own. She was working on her own, supporting me. That often meant sometimes she wasn't available to give the care and attention that we talk about that would come from this natural instinct of motherhood. So there was some things there, and that came from my mum's childhood. So as we know, it goes back and it goes back and it goes back. We go from father to grandfather to great grandfather. Now my grandfather was what probably is known in the industry as a knobhead. That's how I would term it, is a knobhead. I don't talk to him at all. That had an impact on me because I didn't really have that male father figure around. When I was, let's fast forward. So I went through life sort of not aimlessly. I was well behaved, did quite well in school, actually really enjoyed education. Had a really great head teacher that sort of saw my potential, could see my situation. She knew my mum's situation as well, because my mum went to that same school, and she actually offered me a really nice landing into the world. I was very, very fortunate to have that. What that then meant is I was sort of going to school, living in Radford, going to Hempshire Vale, which is a predominantly white working class area. As a black boy from Radford, no one looked like me. They wonder why I'm creaming my skin after swimming. You know, they wonder why my hair's so short and all that kind of stuff. So it was really interesting. But I did see kids with their dads. Where I lived, I didn't see a lot of kids with their dads. It was in Radford. It was the early 80s. But there were dads around. There were really good dads around. But you didn't really get to interact with them because you were out in the street playing. I had my first son when I was the age of 20. 4 years prior to that, my dad passed away. So he passed away of a heart attack. I did see my dad. I spent time with him. We shared a love of music. When I first started doing music, I shared with him my first recordings, and I got his feedback on that, which stays with me forever, even though he's not there with me every other day. So yeah, at the age of 20, I had my first son. He is now 20 years old himself, so he could be carrying on the early fatherhood journey. I had no idea what I was going to do, no idea what to do. But as soon as I saw him, it was very clear that I had to be a good role model for him and show him what an inverted commas man is, even though I was learning at the same time as him. As he took his tentative steps into like making his first walk and stuff, I'm taking my tentative steps into becoming a man. We sort of grew up together, which is random to say. But I was there for my son. Even at 4, when his mum and I split up, I had him every other weekend. I was involved in his schooling. I lived in West Bridgeford. He went to school in Mapley. Sometimes I had no money. I would walk from West Bridgeford to town and make it a fun journey for him in the morning, even though I know my pocket was broke. But we got the bus to school and he got there. As dads, you make sacrifices that aren't necessarily seen. People don't know that that's a sacrifice, inverted commas. And I don't want a medal for it. One of the things we get is, oh, you're such a good dad. Oh, you're dead good. How you spend time with him and play with him. We don't necessarily want a medal for that, because that's what we feel we're supposed to do. Well, that's what I feel I was supposed to do anyway. And hopefully stand them in good stead. My son's now at the London School of Economics studying economics because he wants to go and work in the banks and be rich and loaded and all the rest of it. He didn't get that from me because I was broke, yeah? I was broke. However, probably what he did learn is what I don't want to be like. So I think like I maybe had a hand in his direction, but not directly, which is okay. As dads, you do have an impact on your kids' life, whether they follow you in your footsteps or they do the opposite. But the key thing for me is reflecting on what I want to provide for them, what man I want him to see me be, as well as owning who I am and owning my own shit, because childhood brings shit up. And you learn things along the way. The mistakes that your parents made, you want to better. The things about yourself that you become cognizant of soon impact your children, like how patient you are, how able you are to reflect on your own, what some would call shortcomings, but just the things you've learned, and picking it up and giving your boys, especially, affection and understanding of emotion. It's okay to hug them. It's all good. Hugs are great. Love a hug. Took me a while, about a day, to figure that out. Because as soon as I saw my kid, I just wanted to hug him. And as he's got older and older and older, he's up here now, so I sort of hug his waist when I hug him now, but I still hug him when I see him, right? So now, let's fast forward again. We have a breakdown of a relationship, which is 50% of marriages and probably about 948% of every other relationship you've ever had. It just happens. You stick with one if you're lucky, and it doesn't always work out that way. So I got married, had 2 more children. My first daughter, which for my mind was a daughter, a girl. Wow, what kind of father am I going to be to her? How am I going to show her what respect and love is in a family situation? How is she going to reflect off me, even though she's definitely not a boy? I've never had a girl before. It's going to be so delicate. If she ever gets a boyfriend, I'm going to put him in the cellar. You know, all that protective dad stuff, like, don't even look at her. And as the years went on, what I figured out is actually, one, she's not asked about that. So you're fast forwarding into a future that doesn't even exist, and to be in the moment with her and just sit. And I've read with my kids every night since they were little, and they love to read now. Just those little bits of time. Now, these aren't things that I've learnt or that somebody made me do, but being with mums taught me that. I wouldn't have necessarily known that. So there is no, in any way, time of, there's no reason or rhyme or reason for me to discredit what mums do, because I can't do that. I do not have that everlasting patience. I can't answer mum 949 million times an hour. I can't do it. I don't know how you do it. But what I can do is play with my kids. I can throw them in the air. I can go to the park. I can be daft with them. And really that is really where the bond comes. When I was listening to your your studies and how you were talking to us about it, like, it really resonated, because I was like, that's what I do with my kids. I maybe don't necessarily think, oh, I'm the best dad in the world, but I know I see the glee on their faces, and there is a chemical thing going on when you know you can make your child happy and play, and yeah, it's a wonderful thing. I think I'm going slightly over time, aren't I? So I better stop there. But basically, I know a lot of the work that you do is working with children or fathers that are on your radar. Quite a lot of us aren't on the radar, but we still need support, and we still need to know that we are important in the family to the child. And I think that's a societal thing. It is like dads are just peripheral, whatever. Like just stay over there. Don't interrupt. Don't get in the way of motherhood, kind of thing. But we are really important to kids. And my kids now live in Bath, like miles and miles away. I see my kids once a month. I used to wake up with them every day. Now I see them once a month. But in that time I have, that weekend, those 3 days, I know the bond is still continuing, because when they have to eventually go back to stay with their mum and they come back to me, it's literally like no time's passed. The conversations are exactly the same. The hugs feel the same. The smiles are the same. The jokes are the same. The routines are the same. So I'm making things as normal for them, because this is their new normal, as I can as a dad. And that is one of our roles that we can do. We get them to face the world in its difficulties, sometimes in the awkwardness of split ups and divorce and all that kind of stuff. It's not always pretty. So I was going to do something with you, but my time is real short, so I'm just going to do one thing. So as I say, I've got 3. My eldest is 20. Anybody with anything above a 14-year-old child knows you cannot get them involved in anything, because they just want to be on their phone and doing their thing. But what I did manage to do was get my daughter and my littlest son, who's like 4 and ridiculously cute, got them to do a little song together called All Good in the Fatherhood. Because we know there's difficulties and things are shitty sometimes, but it is genuinely, if you get into your role as your job, not your genetics, as your job, it is actually all good, because you learn something from your kids every day. They're the biggest teachers. As much as you're there guiding you, they teach you stuff and you learn more about yourself every day. So it's track 2. And it's got my daughter on, and I couldn't believe it when she started singing. I absolutely loved it. Might need a little touch more volume. In fact, so when I say it's all good in the Father, you just need to say, hang on, all good in the fatherhood, you say it's all good. Okay?
Hello.
Ready? Here we go. Listen.
Can you hear me?
Ready? Yeah. All good in the fatherhood, it's all good in the fatherhood, it's all. That's right. One more time, yo. All good in the fatherhood, it's all. That's right. It's all good, you know. So listen to my daughter's voice. Please turn it up.
Tell 'em.
Ow! Yeah. All good in the fatherhood, fatherhood. Yo, you know what's mad? Every day I wake up in a different house to my kids.
All good in the fatherhood, it's all good.
And I'm slowly getting used to it, but that's the way it is.
All good in the fatherhood, it's all good.
Don't matter if you don't meet conventions of dad you find.
All good in the fatherhood, it's all good.
As long as you take a bit of moment and make the time.
All good in the fatherhood, it's all good.
And teach your sons it's okay to feel something that's good.
All good in the fatherhood, it's all good.
And teach your daughters they got every right to ask for what they need.
All good in the fatherhood, it's all good.
Sometimes ain't nothing written down, we just gotta grow.
All good in the fatherhood, it's all good.
Ain't gonna be easy every day we do it, gotta let it go. It's all good in the fatherhood, it's all good. Thank you very much. Cheers, thank you. It is all good in the fatherhood, and what I'm gonna do is when that song is mixed and mastered, could you make sure everybody gets the link to it? I'll put it on Spotify for you all, and you show it to some of those dads that you're working with, because actually there is hope. Like, as difficult and shitty as things are, there is always hope, and sometimes men need to hear it from men. That's just how it is. Like, boys need to hear things from their dads, girls need to hear things from their mums. Girls need to hear from their dads, you're beautiful and I love you and respect yourself and I think you're great. But dads need to hear that sometimes from other dads, and it's the ground up stuff that we talk about. I can do that through music. I can do it standing here talking. Sometimes music, people just feel it more, you know, and it's like a bit of a mantra for them, something that they can keep in their minds. So, with no further ado, thank you very much for telling me it's all good in the fatherhood. It's all good, because it actually is. I've gone 4 minutes over time. I'm ever so sorry. Is that okay? We're still friends? It's all good in the fatherhood, yeah? It's all good. That's lucky. Okay, then. So, we have Al-Hurraya here to talk about the cultural aspects of fatherhood. And I'm going to stop talking now and hand them over to you. Please give them a hand. And thank you very much.
Slide, have you? Right, thank you for having us. I'm Manjit from Al-Hurraya, and this is Raf.
I'm Raf.
So yes, today we're talking about who Al-Hurraya is and also the cultural aspects of, especially with dads, and that's why Raf, being a young father himself with 2 beautiful children, and his experience, but also I can put in some of my experience growing up in the 80s and my sort of link with my dad as well, so it's kind of together. But first off, who is Al-Hurraya, which is just on there. So we are Al-Hurraya, and we're proud to be a peer-led support service providing a bespoke, personalised, culturally specific interventions to meet a variety of needs of individuals, their families, and address social issues presented in the local communities. So our founder, Asad Faisal, he founded Al-Hurraya in 2014, and he recently received an MBE in recognition of the amazing work himself and Al-Hurraya have done within the local community and schools in Nottingham, as well as Derby. We utilise early interventions, education, counselling, mentoring, empowerment methods to support these faced a range of disadvantages, including hidden harm, addiction, involvement in crime gangs, domestic abuse, radicalisation and trauma, but there's a lot more that has come up with over a period of time, especially in the space of sort of 9 years or so more. I'm going to go on to that one. So our aims, we've gone too fast. Yes, aims of the session. So our aims are to understand what cultural competency is and why it is important, to also learn what some cultural and religious considerations are when working with dads, how can we become more culturally competent, what is hidden harm, what is professional curiosity and the importance of asking questions, how to respond to hidden harm, good practice and partnership working with local services as well. So I'm just going to put it out there really. What does culturally competence mean to yourselves? So it's just sort of hand raising. Anyone in the room? Well, you got your mic, yeah? So anyone in the room, what comes up to mind of cultural competency? What does that mean to yourself?
Take a little bit of pressure off us.
Run, Emmanuel.
I would imagine it is having an understanding of different cultures or a particular culture, and knowing how that would affect certain people, the people you're working with, and the ins and outs of how that would affect their life, so that when you're working with them, you would meet their needs and support them in a way that is competent.
Yeah.
Well done. Anybody else? Anyone else? You over there. I need that sheet.
I suppose if we think about it from an organisational level, it's where an organisation moves away from just having policies that are to do with culture and understanding people's cultures and understanding people's identities and background, into actually having a workspace that is safe for people from different cultures, into having a workspace that is accessible and equitable, rather than kind of sometimes that lip service that we pay to like EDI. It's to actually embed it into the practices of the organisation.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, yeah. Anyone else?
Don't be far away, please.
No? Okay. We'll move on. So these are the academic definitions in terms of what cultural competency is. And it's, just take a moment to read it actually, if you can, rather than me reading it out. Yep. There is no one universal definition of cultural competency. There is a variety greatly on the setting you are working in. The definitions and guidelines of someone working in palliative care will not be the same as someone working in a school. It is important that you refer to your local policies and procedures, but if we look at these three definitions, you will soon see the earlier one are much wordier and fuller of jargon, but the latest one of 2016 is a lot more concise and to the point, as you can see. So our Al-Hurraya definitions here, just onto that screen there. So cultural competency is the ability to understand, communicate, appropriate, provide sensitive and effective services to a diverse population alongside a willingness to adapt to the emerging needs of clients and its workforce. Also respecting individuality, the language, the age, practices of culture, religious beliefs, gender, sexuality and freedoms, whilst at the same time adhering to safeguarding policies and procedures. So why cultural competency is important? Just go on the slide back to that one. Yes. So communities are changing, and this is reflected in diverse populations of people engaging in education, strategy organisations and private sector. To be culturally competent, we have to be respectful, be aware of the appropriate, and appreciate, the culture, languages and practices of people that we come to contact with and provide to service to. It isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. It's about understanding the way to deliver education care and support. This may be in conflict with client groups and what their expectations are. Being mindful how our lack of understanding and recognising these differences may be one of the reasons they are not engaging as well as we would expect in services. So that's really important for us to know. So we're just going to go through some of the areas of working with dads and the cultural competency and the respect for diversity. And what we have is, in terms of respecting diversity and the areas, is when working with families, we will be working with families from a variety of cultures and backgrounds and religions. Being culturally competent ensures us that we respect, honour these differences and create environments where all fathers feel valued. So it's really important, isn't it, Raf?
So I'm going to jump in there, give you a little bit about myself. I've been working with Al-Hurraya for now coming up 3 years. Prior to that, I was a service user of Al-Hurraya, and now I work in substance misuse within the Black and Asian and ethnic minority communities. But yeah, a little bit about my upbringing and understanding why it's so important for having this understanding that especially in South Asian communities, I can say that fathers are just a figure for income for the family. There isn't much interaction as a father and a child, and this is I'm talking about my parents' generation, which is, they came over in the 80s, early 70s. They came over, and that was it. That's their process. So I tend to call that village mentality, and they brought that village mentality over with them. And what's happened is that's what we've been brought up with, and that's what we've seen. So it's and the other point is my mother. She never really learnt English. She was a stay-at-home mum. So as people were saying about reading, I never had any of that. My father never really interacted with me. My mum couldn't read English. She never read a book to me. So we were kind of left to with school and everything, fend ourselves. I'd translate for my mum I translate the different stuff when I got in trouble at school, you know. but you know, that's how it was. And but I'm sure many people can relate to me in this room that are from the South Asian communities, and they know exactly what I'm talking about. But now it's like so I've got a 6-year-old and I've got a 16-month-old, and yeah, sometimes I want to kind of palm off the 16-month-old, but she's very active. But no, with my son, I try and make that difference of trying to do the reading, trying to be interactive, trying to spend time with my kids, because that's the stuff I never got. That's the stuff that many people haven't got. But when my first son was born, I remember this quite vividly. My mum, she would make comments saying, you know, to me, why am I changing the napkin for? Why am I making a bottle of milk for? You know, because for her, that's unusual. Yeah, and, you know, and that's the kind of boundaries that we need to break, you know. Sometimes I'd be getting up at 4 a.m. in the morning to do a feed. And, you know, my mum probably be praying or something, and she's saying, hey, what are you doing up? You know, and I got my son in my arms. She's, do you know, for her, that's very unusual. And we need to understand that generation is stuck in that way, and the only thing we can do is change the way our thinking is for the next generation. So yeah.
So just coming back to that, thank you, Raf, just giving your experience there. Effective communication, understanding cultural nuances and communication styles is essential for professionals to effectively connect and support new dads. This helps build the trust and the rapport and make it easier for you to engage with that new dad individual to express their needs and concerns, so they open up more. So it's just about that effective communication. It may be different to someone from you know, white Caucasian communities. So it's just sort of understanding the difference there, and also reducing stigma. Some cultural groups may experience stigma or discrimination related to their fatherhood or parenting, as Raf has experienced and shared with us today. Professionals can help reduce stigma by addressing misconceptions of biases and create more supportive and culturally sensitive environments for them. Building trust is the main thing. That's one of the biggest part that I've had experience in with not just my father, even my partner, and with the children, just accessing those services and sort of feel that I can open up and talk about that, because me being born here and British born, and I can have those conversations, and I think those things are changing. But someone from back home or from you know, another country, they sort of feel, well, why are you sharing that? Why are you sharing this information? And it's sort of very much closed. But all that's changing over time. So it's showing that cultural competency demonstrates a respect of understanding, which can lead to increasing trust and open communication between professionals and new dads and mums as well, so, which is important. And enhancing engagement, when showing cultural competence to understand that fathers are more likely to engage in parenting programs and workshops, or even counselling. Like I was saying, obviously both my father and my partner would never do counselling or get any other support or workshops. Antenatal classes was a push, you know, it was quite hard, but we got there. So it's just overall the family well-being. Supporting new fathers isn't just about individual, but it's also about the well-being of the entire family, because a lot of extended families do live together still. There are now, over time it's changed, but there are still that generations, you know, not just from your parents, but your grandparents, uncle, aunts. There's extended families living next door in the community in that area, so it's kind of still big, and respecting them. Over to you.
So cultural considerations. Yeah, cultural considerations and language communications. I'll give you a chance to read on the screen. So communication styles. Different families and cultures may have unique communication styles, norms, preferences. For instance, some cultures may value a more direct communication style, while others may prefer indirect, non-verbal cues. Being culturally competent enables professionals to adapt their communication styles to best serve their clients. So I'm just going to quickly, communication styles at home. So when I was growing up, out of respect, I would never ask anything of my dad or anything. I'd have to go to my mum, ask her, and she would say, so and so, what he's asking for this, you know. Now this isn't something that's abnormal within them communities. It's a very normal thing, but for somebody who's working with a family like that, it can be quite red flagging, if you like. You know, that their communications levels are broken down, but it's understanding the fact that there's a level of respect, there's a level of you know, when he was alive and you know, he'd walk into a room, it was a bit presidential, if you like. You know, if he walked into a room, some of us would either slip out, yeah, or we would sit on a lower seat, yeah. But that's again that village mentality of respect. Nothing to red flag, you know. But it's having that understanding, yeah, that, you know what, this is a level of respect within this family. And language barriers. Language barriers can impact individuals' ability to express their thoughts, feelings, and concerns. Providing language support, interpretation services, or access to multilingual professionals can help bridge this gap. Dads may not be fluent in speaking or understanding English. Consider using interpretation services if you believe that there may be misunderstandings. Improvise. I've had people phone who spoke minimal English. After confirming what language they spoke, I explained briefly over the phone. I would text using Google Translate, and I had text conversation with the individual in a Turkish and Arabic. They communicated their needs, and I was able to signpost them then and give them the information they needed. You could learn the basics of language of clients. Your support in becoming fluent in every language is impractical. But if there is a key phrase or terms you can learn to communicate better with the family, this is greatly appreciated by the family and help build that trust.
Yeah, just coming back to that, this sort of language, and we talk about language, so it's not saying like, okay, they don't speak English, that's it, that's the biggest barrier. There are ways that we can embed the communication, also getting families involved. Like, for example, I was talking about my father, he's a breadwinner, he was working very hard, even my mum, but he never knew what class we're in, we just about knew what school, you know, and this is the school they go to, sort of thing. But it was the lack of communication, the fear. I never had my father present in parents' evenings, and that was quite disheartening. And I thought, like, are we reinventing that wheel? Am I reinventing that wheel again with my current situation with my husband and my children? And that's what happened. And I think it was just a case of, I'm quite open, and I thought, okay, I'll just get on with it, but then feed it back. But then I thought, I'm feeding it back in our home language, in our mother tongue, but no, I'm going to do it in English. So even, for example, when my youngest, my daughter at the time, and she was doing her phonics and reading her books, I used to just push and say, go to your dad, go on. And she had no choice, and he had no choice, and they'd be reading, and that's when you just sort of started thinking, okay, I can get the confidence. I think it's just now that we can do that, but back, obviously, with my father, my mother wouldn't be doing that. I think, again, that respect, he's come from work, long hours, and it's just sort of getting the food on the table, making sure the children are fed, watered, you know, gone to bed, and sort of giving him that time of, like, quiet and rest sort of time. But things, like I said, have been different now, and they're changing, so that's important.
Thank you, Manji. So, cultural and religious identity and beliefs, obviously on the board. So we've got gender roles, parenting styles, religious practices, life choices, non-judgmental attitude. So I've got a few definitions of each topic here. I'm going to quickly read through, and yeah, so gender roles. Certain religious traditions have well-defined gender roles which can influence a father's duties within the family. And in more traditional households where gender roles are more rigid, dads may be discouraged from participating in traditionally feminine activities such as cooking, childcare. However, there is a greater emphasis on dads' roles to provide for the family and create stability. Recognizing and respecting differing practices is vital to providing culturally appropriate and effective support. So again, that's something that's really major. You know, religiously there's many religions, and you know, I can only speak of my own faith. You know, if I read in scriptures and texts, a father is meant to be parenting is meant to be very 50-50 of the job role, and it's written in you know that our prophet he provided support within the family of near enough 50%, yeah, of the stuff we're trying to break out of tradition and culture. So I'm just going to go to parenting styles and come back to that. Both religions and culture can impact parenting styles. For example, some religions and traditions emphasize authoritative parenting, where fathers take more strict and more disciplinary role. Others encourage a more permissive and nurturing approach. And religious practices. Religious fathers may place a strong emphasis on religion, education and practices. This includes teaching them about their faith, participating in religious rituals and attending religious ceremonies. And I think that's a duty for both parents, you know, for them to, you know, if they want, you know, to emphasize their faith on their children. And life choices. Religious views can also influence the life choices fathers make, such as career decisions, financial management, and lifestyle choices, as they may want to align this choice with their religious values for the benefit of their family. Now that leads me onto something else that's quite there's that life choice of parenting and thing is a very stressful. It can be quite stressful for the child, and very pressured, if you like, to try and keep up with the siblings, to try and keep up with education, to try and become that engineer that the father wanted them to be back in India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, or be that surgeon that they wanted to be. That kind of pressure can lead to different outcomes. And earlier on, I said I'm a service user of Al-Hurraya. And I'm just going to go a little bit back. The reason I was with Al-Hurraya at the start is because of my own issues, of my own pressures of that kind of family lifestyle, and I'm a recovering addict, and that's the life I led previously, which again, you know, has brought me to where I am today. So for me, it's been a massive learning phase of my life, a massive turning point of my life.
Yeah, I just want to sort of share a bit about with life choices, just sort of coming back at that cultural, you know, expectations as, you know, a father and son relationship or a father and daughter relationship. And I feel like, again, I can share here is the experience, again, father being the breadwinner, working all these hours, and we're sort of conditioned and embedded with these expectations as we grow up. We're going to be in college, university, we're going to have this high expectation of this education that you're going to be doing, this career pathway, and certain outcomes like Raf shared here then sort of manifest, and that, you know, that happens, and then there's a gap between that relationship with the father and the daughter, or the father and the son. And our own experience here, sort of as a peer-led service that provides, and sort of being peer-led myself, is that the experience that we sort of create is such a barrier and such a divide, and it becomes so distant that we can't even communicate anymore. And that communication is that the rebelling kicks in, you know, as a teenager, right? I don't want to do this because of these religious practices. I don't want to be forced doing this. I don't want to go to the temple. I don't want to do that. I don't want to speak the language. And there's all that, so you become, you know, rebel. And that's a lot of the stuff that I did. I was rebelling. And I had like two identities hiding that. And then coming home thinking, oh, I've got to face my dad. This is how I've got to conduct myself. It was not that strong in terms of, oh, you've got to wear, you know, Indian clothes, or you've got to speak the language as soon as you walk through the door. It was more about sort of that respect. And have you been to college today? Not knowing that I've bunked off and I'm doing X, Y, Z. And even having boyfriends, which was a big thing as well. But then with my brother, his led to the severity of his addiction because of that relationship that he didn't have with my father and with my dad. And that has been going on and had gone on for such a long time. And all he wanted was just that affection and that love. And just saying, you know what, son, I love you regardless of what you're doing and what's happening and where you're going on with your life. Sadly, his life got cut short. He passed away almost 10 years ago through his addiction. But again, my dad still sits there and thinks, what went wrong? You know, I worked so hard. I provided. I made sure he went to university. I got him married. I paid for the wedding. I got him. So all that materialistic stuff, but not looking and connecting as an emotion. And the connection that you have together, that is lost. And that was lost over the time. So it's all about leveling, but having that communication. And just recently as well, I'll just give you a sort of snapshot of a client that we had coming through the doors. Young male, brought him in to see us, the father had, and he just sort of dumped him in the office and sort of said, deal with him, he's a bad one. Oh, you know, I've had enough, I've washed my hands off him. And then we says, no, you need to come in as well. So we brought dad in and we sat down together. And throughout that session, it was probably not even 10 minutes. And that beautiful son of his was just crying out for emotion. And he looked at his dad and he says, all I want you to say is, I love you, and just give me a hug. And that's all it took. Just that time, that's all he wanted, and nurturing. And sometimes that's what it is, because that father figure is very stern, you know, and very much sort of, okay, okay, this is the path we want you to be, and the emotion is lost. And that happens with boys, their sons and daughters as well. So, yeah.
So that kind of nicely covers that area. Mental health and barriers. I'm going to leave you.
Oh, okay. Bear with me. Yes. So mental health barriers and stigma. Fatherhood can have a significant impact on dad's mental health, both positively and negatively. Whilst fatherhood is extremely rewarding, the demands of fatherhood can cause stress. Dads may experience strain on their romantic relationships or isolated from their social circle due to the parenting responsibilities. Silence and secrecy. Stigma often is a culture of silence where individuals feel compelled to hide their mental health struggles due to fear of judgment or discrimination. So this secrecy can prevent them from seeking the support they need, and that can be an issue. And, you know, I think it's more about dads coming together and having those groups is really important, and having, you know, sessions that they can start opening up. Having those open discussion and conversations is important. Lack of awareness and education, misconceptions of lack of understanding about mental health can contribute to stigma. Education awareness initiatives are essential in challenging stereotypes and promoting accurate information about mental health. And then the cultural norms and expectations, cultural expectations around strength, resilience and collectivism can deter individuals from seeking help. The fear of being seen as weak or burdening their families and communities can hinder help-seeking behaviour. So again, it can be an impact to the whole family as well. They feel like not just that they're the main breadwinner, but they've got to carry the family together. So they've got to show that they're very strong in their community as well. and their extended families. How do I become culturally competent? If you just go on the next slide there. Thank you. Just on this. So you can reflect on your own cultural biases, beliefs and assumptions, active listening, cultural humility, education training, collaborate with community organisations. So it's developing cultural competence results in the ability to understand, communicate with and effectively interact with people across cultures. So awareness of your own cultural lens is critical in fostering empathy and understanding for diverse perspectives. Listening attentively to individual stories, experiences and concerns. Practice active listening by withholding judgment, asking open-end questions rather than being biased and closed questions. Seeking clarification if you're not sure, that's quite important, just to sort of, it doesn't mean that you don't understand them, but just clarify the context that they have said and that they've shared with you. Adopt a humble attitude of conscious learning and respect for diverse cultures. Recognize that you can never fully know or understand every aspect of a person's culture, and to be open to learning from those. Engage in ongoing education and training to increase your own knowledge and understand different cultures, cultural practices, cultural considerations in mental health. Attend workshops, webinars, conferences that are focused around cultural competence. Partner with local community organisations if you're not sure, if there's struggles there that you can connect with, and bridging that gap. And working together. So it's not about just, okay, I can't work with this individual, I'm going to have to look at another culturally specific service. It's about working together and collaboratively to build those cultural gaps as well, which is important. Go to the next slide. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So avoid making broad cultural assumptions. The not one-size-fits-all approach. Recognise each family is different, each father is different. Culturally religious norms, beliefs and expectations of a father vary widely depending on the specific culture and religion. Even within a single cultural or religious group, these can differ greatly. It is important that not all individuals within a given culture or religion may adhere strictly to these expectations. Beliefs and practices. Avoid making assumptions or stereotypes about individuals from different cultural backgrounds. You should still encourage the father to be as involved as possible, again, with training and mentoring, especially the younger ones who haven't experienced that kind of fatherly figure. So really, they're lost without fatherly figure emotionally. That's what we're trying to kind of mentor and train people to kind of take on that approach, what they didn't have, trying to give that to their own children. You still encourage the father to be as involved as possible. It is about understanding the family where what works for them. A father may wish to be more involved than he feels his peers, relatives thinks. You should empower fathers to do so. The key is to recognizing that each family have unique interpretations and expressions of their religion and culture. Tailor your approach to accommodate their specific needs and preferences. It is crucial for professionals working with ethnically diverse communities to recognize and respect cultural differences, as well as the unique strength and resilience embedded within these cultures. By doing so, we can create an environment that fosters trust, understanding, inclusivity, and a loving father. Next slide. Encouraging dads' involvement. What works for them? Empower dads. Are you being dad inclusive? Now we've spoken about how norms, values, and expectations and traditions not only vary within cultures and religions, but from family to family, it is about understanding what works for each individual family. You should always encourage dads to be involved and empower them to do so, and to do what they want to do. if you feel a father wants to be more involved, then what they feel and their expectations of them are, encourage them to do this and communicate with dad and to understand what they want. So again, like I was saying, you know, when I was going downstairs with my son in my arms at 4 a.m. in the morning, it was a normal. I got the normal scowling look off my mother, and for me that's normal, you know. But if I had a professional in the same room at that time, that would be a red flag. But again, it's understanding where I wanted to be involved in my son's upbringing. I want to be involved in his nurturing, whereas that village mentality is not allowed. So you know, it's breaking that, and it's approaching fathers to be able to encouraging them to do more with the children. If dad is taking a back seat, don't assume this is necessarily due to their cultural or religious traditions. Explore whether they are being a father inclusive and what the reasons may be. And dad isn't engaging as much. Give dads the confidence to move away from traditional expectations.
Okay. Hidden harm and professionals' curiosity. What is hidden harm? Just on the next slide there. So hidden harms, we're talking about forced marriage, domestic abuse, financial abuse, emotional and physical abuse, substance misuse that we've sort of shared a bit about ourselves, mental health, gambling, discrimination, honour-based abuse as well. Men can also be victims in this too, so it's not just assumed that it's just women, especially in the cultural, ethnically diverse communities, that we have had a good intake of men that have had sort of hidden harm issues as well. And yeah, it's been quite effective. So signs of shame, fear, sadness, anxiousness, being embarrassed, feeling ashamed, inability to comply with requests, isolation, difficulty with peers, inappropriate outbursts, and difficulty with emotional regulation as well. So it's really important. Professional curiosity. So we've got here explore and proactively understand family dynamics, not making those assumptions, and do not be afraid to ask those questions. Always ask questions. It's good to ask questions. There's nothing wrong with that. So it's just exploring that and not making those assumptions rather than just sitting there and thinking, okay, dad's sat in the corner. He looks as if he's sulking, or they've had an argument, or whatever it is. Maybe he just wants to give the privacy. I remember during the time of breastfeeding, and say if I had midwives or a health visitor come and visit, my husband will sort of respectfully just sort of give us space and go upstairs, and then probably, I don't know, in their mind they're thinking, okay, dad's not getting involved, or he doesn't want to be in there because he feels embarrassed and it's a shame. But it's not about that. I think it's just asking questions and sort of letting dad being involved is important, and making him being part of it that's the important part. So yeah, just do as open as way as possible, and ask and check if their well-being, and not to judge or criticize them as well. So sort of saying, you know, again, that assumption why you're downstairs, or, you know, you're not being involved. Oh, you don't seem bothered. Those sort of things, we shouldn't be asking those, saying those sort of things either. Responding to hidden harm, the most important thing to do is do something. Here are some additional tips for handling hidden harm disclosures. Let them know they aren't alone. Let them know it isn't their fault. Listen and non-judgmentally. Provide information and signpost to the appropriate services that will connect. Don't try to console without training. Raise awareness of hidden harm. That's most important as well. Yeah. Took that time. Yeah.
So what works? Cultural empathy, cultural identification, being recognized as an individual and not as a problem, symptom or a project that needs fixing, being heard, listened to and understood, inclusion, gaining trust, empowering dads, raising their aspirations and enabling them to realize their potential, respecting and acknowledgement of past history or issues, respecting dads, autonomy and decision making, validating thoughts, feelings and beliefs, providing holistic wraparound support, consistency in support, safeguarding and positive role models within own communities with lived experience.
Yeah, I think that's really important, the positive role models in our own communities. If one role model and they're seeing that this father is really being involved, another one will sort of ripple that and mirror, okay, you know what, he's getting involved, we've gone to a family event, he's okay to change a nappy and go, in a quiet space to do that. But other fathers will, lead by example. So it's just sort of helping those individuals and role models to sort of say, you know what, it's okay to do these things and being involved as a new dad and furthermore being a dad. Yep. So these are just a few community resources and services in Nottingham. Obviously, there's ourselves with Al-Hurraya. We do culturally specific services, and we're very open to a lot of the counselling and mentoring that we do, and having those role models in those communities. There's many communities. There's so many that we can't even touch. And I know there's, the Eastern European, and I think it's just, again, getting role models, getting ambassadors, getting anybody who can be involved and sort of enhance and sort of, give them the tools to give a mentoring workshops or training. And what's important is that once they deliver that training to their community members in their little hubs as well, they can then come involved and have that communication and open discussions. But there's so much more out there, and I feel like there's not enough services, especially culturally specific, but I know generically there is, and nationally there's services. So that's just a few for today. So any questions? Is there any questions? Yes. Try and answer it.
You do the question, I'll do the answer.
Sorry. With regards to the ethnic minorities and stuff, I wanted to know, like, with your experience, how do you engage more fathers within the ethnic minorities? Like, how do you get them? Because obviously, like you're saying, the cultural dynamics, fathers have a role of just being a provider without them understanding the benefits of being fully involved and engaged in the children's life. How do you get them engaged and to stay engaged?
I think most importantly is trust and building that relationship with them, having a rapport with the family as well, supporting the family as a holistic, a wraparound support service for the children. For example, we speak to the parents, and it's not just the mom or the grandma. We always focus on, where's dad? Where's dad involved in this? Where's, what's his involvement? Where is he present? Is he working? Is he away? Is he absent, what's going on. So it's just about engaging with the fathers and building that trust is the most important part, but having that consistent relationship and having the, communication, reassurance, the trust, respect for one another, not telling them that, you're doing it wrong and this is why you should be this. It's all about sort of empowering them and keeping that engagement with the empowerment as well, just giving their confidence and self-esteem, because again, they may be feeling, who can they talk to? They can't talk to their peers, they can't talk to their work colleagues, so it's just about having that relationship is important.
And the other, at Al-Hurraya, we do workshops specifically within mosques, and one of the workshops we do is around drugs, So I take drug equipment and paraphernalia into a mosque, which is, yeah. So, you know, and we talk to kids about drugs, and the fathers are there, present at that time, because it's after they've had their Arabic lessons and their religious education. So they'll stay on an hour and they'll do this little workshop with us. And that for me has been the best time to be able to engage with the father, you know, when they've been witnessing this workshop, you know, probably with the eyes rolling back of their head and whatever, you know. But but what I'm finding is it's fathers like me, my age, you know, and I'm able to reach out to them and kind of, you know, because then again, this workshop is kind of fitting into criterias as well. So it's kind of it's hitting ticking quite a few boxes at the same time.
It's opening those conversations really, because once you're in there, you start opening those particular mental health, you know, it's not just the parenting, it's the husband and wife relationship, mother and the extended family relationships and all of that. So there's so much that scope, but I feel like we do need to get involved in more, not just religious settings, but in the community, being in the heart of the community is the most important part. We've done some workshops in Derby mosques, but that was imams leading the way. So we were talking about younger imams and talking about those tropical sort of, you know, men and sons relationships and the conversations, you know, about sex, you know, if they don't want to talk about sex and safe sex and all of that. And there was a lot more. And we're starting to open those doors, but there's a lot of doors that are still closed, and it's very difficult just to sort of go in there and go, right, we're going to talk about drugs, we're going to talk about this, we're going to talk about these topics that they still want to, you know, it's still the elephant in the room, isn't it? So those conversations still need to be open, and I feel like we need to sort of engage more with other communities, not just, but I know Al-Hurraya was formed, and the connections because of Assad and his passion of his own experience and how he felt, if he had that early intervention, maybe all the years that where he went and where it led to, he wouldn't have been in that, you know, position. So I think it's really important to have that early preventative work with younger, especially fathers and dads as well, with these conversations. Yeah. Any other questions?
Hello. Yeah. I just want to know, obviously it's set in the mosque where you do some of your workshops, but do you get like other organizations to come in that obviously don't know about the culture of the mosque and stuff like that? So obviously like people here can understand what happens in the mosque and how to, you know what I mean? So if you, that makes sense.
Yeah, we're always open to open workshops, you know, just sort of looking at particular issues or anything that we want that's come forward to us in terms of something like yourself that you've sort of spoke about in terms of having that sort of understanding. It could be, you know, from a temple to a Hindu, a synagogue, you know, just looking at how you would go in and what you would do and the respect and sort of the conversations you would have in those religious settings is important. So those sort of things, if it was coming to our attention that there's a need, then we'll bring something together, we'll put something together and deliver that with our team. We've got a good sort of 25 staff now from Nottingham and Derby, so we're sort of very much spread out, and we've got lots of ethnic diverse community sort of staff members and ambassadors as well, and role models. So I think it's really good to sort of look at those topics and spread the word more, but also get others involved, get, you know, organisations involved and be part of that. Yeah.
Cool.
Any other questions? Anyone? Sorry.
How do you overcome the barriers from other ethnic groups, such as Hindu, Punjabi, any of the other groups? How do you overcome their cultural barriers to want to work with yourselves?
Yes, that's important as well. What I feel is that, again, because our team, we've got such a variety and we've got individuals from those different backgrounds, and it's really important that we have those open conversations and bring in that staff team member to sort of train and develop and be an ambassador in their community. So for example, like obviously me born and bred in Nottingham, family known in Nottingham. I'm from the Sikh community, and being in the temples, a lot of people know who I am, so I can have those open conversations now and sort of speak about some issues that we can sort of then open up and have workshops and break those barriers. And I think that's really important, but some we do struggle with, I'll be honest. There are some sort of closed doors, or they'll say it doesn't happen in our community. What? We don't have alcohol issues. There's a massive alcohol issue, you know, alcoholism, I know that. But again, we're opening up those conversations and topics with other services that are working together as well. There's the Sikh Recovery Network. He's done a lot of work, Jazz Rai, over time as well, doing a lot of programs on TV as well nationally. So it's sort of getting the word out there and looking at avenues of treatment and support. That alcoholism isn't just, you know, father drinks, grandfather drinks, now son drinks. Now, do you know what I mean? It's not just going on for a generation to a generation. It's about breaking those barriers and sort of like, okay, there's issues here and this is what we need to be doing to stop and not reinvent the wheel again. So yeah, it's just about opening it. I'll let you answer some questions.
We have one more?
One more, yeah.
Yeah?
I think.
We've got 5 minutes left, so this may be our last one.
Okay.
Are you guys going to be here for the rest of the day?
Yeah.
Are you going to be here for the break for the tea and coffee?
Yeah, we'll
stay for that.
Yeah,
So whilst they drink the tea and coffee, if you've got
yeah.
any other questions, then definitely give
Yeah.
them a shout. Also,
Yeah,
follow their
cool.
details. There you go.
Thank you for a wonderful presentation. My question to you is, how do you deal with unsolicited advice from the elders if they're not on your side? You talk about respect and you talk about that distance that is there. So what do you do when somebody, I assume when you bring your drug boxes of paraphernalia representation to different objects that are important to people, how do you deal if somebody interferes with what you deliver?
So they know what we're going to be delivering. It's not something that I just walk in and whip out of my pocket or anything. It's obviously they know. Parents are aware of this, so you know they know. So some parents won't take their children in for that day if they didn't want them to know. But again, it's having the knowledge, you know, and kind of understanding that. Hold on, I'm finding bits of foil. I'm finding bits of, you know, what's all this going on in people's pockets, in my son's pockets, in my daughter's pockets. And same again for the children to start understanding, hold on, there's something wrong with my father, or there's something wrong with my mother, this is what it is, you know, and being able to kind of notice these behaviours. So that's why it's really important that we do that. But again, people have the option of not coming in. Yeah, don't get me wrong, you are always going to get people that are against what we do. We're always going to get that, but if people are, I've been involved with Al-Hurraya since 2015, and if I wasn't, I wouldn't be standing here today. I wouldn't be being a father today, you know, and that's the truth of it, you know, because the mentality that our parents have is he's a wrong 'un, let's send him back, let's keep his passport, you know. And that's the kind of mentality that happens, and that's what happens, you know. And that's somebody who's had to go back to the UK embassy to get a passport to come back to the country. That's the kind of stuff that goes on, you know, and that's the truth of it.
Yeah.
So there are going to be people that are against what you do.
I think also with the older generation, I think once we've always been embedded, especially from the South Asian community, what will people say? And we always have that, what will people say? But once those barriers are broken for that other generation, older generation, for example, if, say, one person was in that workshop and then he's actually shared the experience in that workshop that, you know what, actually it was quite good. It was quite opening, you know, mind-opening about conversations that we've not discussed here. Then that other person might think, okay, he's done it, I might as well do it. So it's sort of giving that sort of ripple effect communication with those older generations. I feel that's important, because if one does it, then the others will follow in a good way.
Thank you. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
All right.